everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do my September wrap up of all the books that I had read this month. So there were a few that were disappointing, only, from my perspective and my reading type. So if you ended up liking them or, not liking them, definitely just remember that everyone's opinion, is different because you take from books differently than the next. So the first book that I read was a buddy read with one of my friends here locally, and it was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, this book is definitely not a genre that I would normally read. This is like historical fiction. I enjoyed the writing. I gave it 3 stars. Definitely the author kept me intrigued. It kept me wanting to flip through the pages. So the book is about Evelyn Hugo, who in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and early 80s was a Hollywood starlet. She, starred in a lot of films. Definitely was, the talk of the town. And, you follow her through her biography telling of her story. So at first you get Monique Grant, who is a journalist in modern times. She works at a paper. She is honestly a nobody. She hasn't really made a name for herself yet. And so whenever Evelyn Hugo reached out to the actual newspaper, and said, I want to do a biography with Monique Grant. I want to do a tell-all, all of this. Of course, the paper was like, well, what about this writer or this writer, one that was more established. And basically Evelyn said, it's either Monique Grant or nobody. So at first you're like, why only Monique Grant? Like, what is the connection? And so she goes over to Evelyn's, apartment. And of course, Evelyn hasn't ever really done a tell all or an expose or anything like that. So this was definitely really big, and she was giving away some of her gowns to a cancer foundation because her daughter ended up dying from cancer early on in her life. And I think she was like maybe 39, 40 years old when she passed away. So of course that, is near and dear to Evelyn's heart. So Monique basically is asking all these questions. Why me? Why this? And, basically Evelyn says, you're going to find out. You'll know everything by the end. So basically you are just going through hearing about all of her husbands, what Evelyn went through. What was really hard for me in this book, why I only gave it 3 stars, was because I did not feel for Evelyn. I didn't feel for any of the characters because the way that the writing is it's, I went here, I did this. There was no emotion behind it, which is good because I guess Evelyn was trying to do a biography about herself, so you're not really going to put a lot of emotion into a biography book. But basically, I just didn't feel for the characters. There were a few times in the book that I did cry, but it wasn't really from feeling for the characters. It was more just the situation that those characters were put in. And, kind of like how I could relate to my own life if, I had went through it with a family member or, friends or anything like that. So I kind of think that it was just the situation. And, so I gave it 3 stars. The twist at the end was shocking. I will say that I did not expect the link between Evelyn and Monique to be what it was. But what I was upset about is how the last few chapters, Monique has this one feeling towards Evelyn, and then like literally 1 chapter later, it's like a whole different feeling. And I'm just like, did you really feel that? Because I did not feel like you were angry or upset or happy with her. So definitely pick this up. It was worth the read. I'm happy that I did read it. However, I am definitely probably not going to pick this book up again. I don't know if I'll read any more from Taylor Jenkins Reid because, for one, she writes genres that I don't typically, gravitate towards. And with this being my first kind of taste of the author's writing, it didn't really intrigue me to want to go pick it up. But if you like historical fiction, this is a really good book. So the next book was a very big letdown. If you've seen my previous video where I compare two dark romances, two dark fantasy romances, you know, side by side, this book was The Forsaken King by Penelope Barsetti. So I'm not really going to go too much into it. You should definitely go and watch that video because I do more of a deep dive into it about why I didn't like it or what I did like about it and how I compare this book with, I think it was The Dark King by Gina Maxwell that I read last month. But this book follows Ivory, who is, you know, brought up in a house of privilege. She is like the Duke's daughter, so she is, you know, one that basically gets anything that she wants. She is supposed to be going to meet with the Queen to talk about, you know, her future husband or, you know, prospects and things. Her father wants her to seduce the prince. But before she gets there, she is kidnapped by a guy named Mastodon and taken down under the cliff, which is, you know, a wasteland, a wintry, you know, place. And, you know, she is held captive because of what her father had done in the past. And so you're following her. This book I said 2 stars in my previous book, but I'm actually going to give it a 1 star because after doing that video earlier this week and comparing, you know, those different aspects of this book with the other one, I just didn't like it. You have absolutely no plot. There's literally nothing but sex in here. The story that Penelope Barsetti was going to go for, the plot, the way that the characters were going to, you know, develop and how, you know, her father did wrong and now she's gonna pay, and then now, you know, like she's fallen for Mastodon. It did not work. I really enjoyed the aspect of it and the you know, prospect of it being a great book, but it just did not do it for me. So you may like it, but definitely check trigger warnings. It is very dark. There is rape in here. There is sexual assault. So definitely check this out if you are into that, but it wasn't for me. So whenever I got done reading that book that I was very much anticipated, you know, reading, I picked up another book that I've read 80 times, which is The Worst Story Ever Written by Nicole Wells, which if you watch that video about comparing 2 dark romances together, you will hear more about this book as well, which you follow an author named Jane. She is a mystery writer. She, you know, has no family. She doesn't live, you know, very well. She's kind of, you know, in poverty in a way. She looks at the brighter things in life, you know. She doesn't seem like she's a depressed character. She just, you know, is happy a lot, right? And so you're in a world with vampires, werewolves, you name it, it's there. And she is brought in by the book fairy to go to the court to solve a murder that happened. And while she's there, she meets the Crown Prince Liam, who she has thought was one way because of what she had heard. And then whenever she meets him, he's entirely different. So you get to watch their interactions and how she makes friends along the way within the court that will stick with you throughout the book. It's a great, great read. I definitely highly recommend this if you are looking for kind of like a palate cleanser or a book that's going to kind of get you out of a reading slump or anything like that. It's really, really good. So definitely go check this one out as well. If you want to know more about it, definitely go check that previous video out that's titled Comparing 2 Dark Fantasy Romances, because this is at the end of it. So then the next one was another disappointment. You know, I had a lot of high hopes for this as well because a friend had lent me this book a long time ago. I never picked it up. Probably because I just didn't know what it was and I never read the synopsis. And finally, you know, I was like, I'm going to give it a go. But it is The Diviners by Libba Bray. Now, this book, I DNF'd. I only got maybe a third of the way through. I just could not power through. And it was not because of the characters or the storyline, because I definitely felt, that the character development was great in the little bit of time that I read. The story, I could tell, was going to be a really, really good story. What I could not get past was the writing. And that's just, my preference and my reading style. It is like in third person. And, the way that it is written, I was reading the book, but I wasn't reading, if that makes sense. Like, I was reading the words, but it just was not settling in with me. I would get through a chapter and then I would not even know what I just read. And so I struggled with it a lot. Just the writing style, but the premise of the book, the characters, the way that things were setting up sounded so, so good. So if any of you have read this, or have listened to it on audiobook, is it better on audiobook? Will I be able to consume it a little bit better and retain the information? Because if so, I'm willing to give this another try, because I can do audiobooks. I do find those enjoyable as well, because I can do cleaning. I can do, I can play my Elder Scrolls Online on my Xbox, and while I'm listening to it. So if you think that audiobook would be better, let me know, because I'm willing to give this another try. But as of right now, I DNF'd it. And then the last book of the month that I read was The Inadequate Heir by Daniel L. Jensen. So this book is the third book in the Bridge Kingdom series, but it actually follows different characters than what was in the original duology. So I can't really tell you much about the plot or what was going on, because it would give away, the Bridge Kingdom. But however, the Bridge Kingdom itself is about Laura and Oren, or Aaron. I don't know how to say his name. They are arranged in a marriage. They live on opposite ends of the bridge, which operates, the transporting of goods and everything else in this whole kingdom. And so whoever operates and controls the bridge, basically holds the power in the whole kingdom. So I think it's Oren, his family, or his territory controls the bridge. Laura comes from a kingdom on the other side. She is raised with all of her sisters to become an assassin and be a spy, to marry the king and basically assassinate him, get all the information for her father, and it just goes on from there. So it is a great fantasy romance duology, not very heavy on the romance. There are parts that are a little spicy, but overall, I want to say the romance really took a backseat to the plot, which I really liked, because the world around it and the politics and what these characters go through was really, really good. So this book is just kind of a continuation of that world, following two other characters that you do meet in the original duology. So I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. I could not read this fast enough. This is the Bookish Box edition, so it has sprayed edges and an alternate cover. But I highly suggest, if you like fantasy romance, read the Bridge Kingdom duology and then pick this up. But if you haven't read it, or if you have read it, pick up The Inadequate Heir if you were kind of on the fence about it, of continuing in this world. It is wonderful. It is good. And you will not regret it. So those were the books that I read in September. Definitely let me know below if you have read any of these. Did you like them? Did you not like them? Definitely give me some feedback on the Diviners. I really want to give that another try. I just don't know if the audiobook will be easier for me to comprehend what is going on. The writing just had me so lost, and I wanted to love this book. So give me some feedback on that. In the description box below is my Instagram. Go follow me on there. Talk to me. Talk anything books. My Enchanted Rose services is on there as well if you want to follow that on Instagram. Sometimes we have some ARCs available. We have giveaways going on, so go check that out. And then as well as my Goodreads if you want to follow any of my reviews on there. But make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of my content. And until next time, everyone, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!